Hello and welcome back to the Cfctalk podcast. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleja, and a bit of a different one today. Usually on the podcast, we're joined by guests or other people from other platforms as well. But tonight, it's just me on my own because you know what? I decided, what's the best way to do an episode? And it was just doing it myself and talking about Chelsea and football in general and whatever's going on with the club at the moment and Potter's run. Well, a big game against Brentford this weekend, or not this weekend, but actually midweek, which ended up in a draw, so that winning streak does come to an end. But in the end of the day, it was a tie and a tough, fixture for Chelsea with the games that have been there in the last few weeks, and then this coming up. It's never an easy place to go into Brentford and take away a win. And we've seen it last year as well. They came to Stamford Bridge and beat us 4-1 embarrassingly. So, it was never going to be an easy fixture, and Chelsea do struggle with teams who are defensive, who play with a low block, play with a defense who sits deep. So it's a bit disappointing. Obviously, it's never a good feeling to come home after a draw against a team like not like Brentford, because realistically they've been really doing really well this season. If it does carry on, and if with a few more signings, they could be a team that could threaten the top six or at least the top eight right now, that they're doing as well this season. Could have been 3 points. We just got the tactics a little wrong in terms of the substitutions as well. I know we're going to get into all of that, but we could have been better in those circumstances, and maybe we could have scraped away a win because, as I said, we weren't looking for flashy football. We weren't looking for 4 or 5 goals. It was just a 1-0 was enough to get us the 3 points and come home. And we knew the Man United game this weekend was going to be the fixture to look out for, and the fixture where we'll see everyone play, which is why Sterling was rested, Aubameyang was rested in the lineup. So that was also going to be a big factor in it. And, we did look a little tired, and it was one of those games where, coming off of 2 games in the Champions League, an away game as well, being one of them being an away game, plus a few other games against Villa and then Wolves as well. So, been a tough few weeks for Chelsea, playing games every 3 or 4 days. And the Man United performance for me is going to be a major performance, because that's where I guess these guys will be tested. Man United have not been as consistent as we've been, and however, they've had the upper hand on us. We haven't won a game since 2017, that Morata goal, that Aspie cross under Conte. So, the last thing I want is for us to lose against Man United, or even a draw. I think even a draw, in Chelsea fans and myself, we won't be happy with that, because they're a team who are struggling, not just in terms of the performances they're putting on the pitch, but off the pitch as well, with the antics with Ronaldo and everything going on in the back room and everything. So that's going to be an interesting discussion that we're going to have later on in the podcast. But going back to Brentford a little bit, first half, honestly, let's start with that. Just before we get into the first half, actually, just the lineups, honestly, great lineup. Looking back at it, I wouldn't change a lot except a few of the players around. And I will start off with the obvious one, I think, which everyone would agree with me, is the Pulisic one, that we should have actually started off Pulisic. He's been great under Graham Potter. We've seen a lot of intent from him. And the games that he's played, he's shown some potential, which is what you want to see from Chelsea player, especially from Pulisic, who under Tuchel wasn't performing as well, hasn't had the best of times. And all those rumors and articles coming out of him being one of the major reasons why Tuchel is no longer at Chelsea, and so on and so forth. But when he did come on, he showed us what he can do. And there's the shots that he was taking, the passes that he was making, the chances that he was creating. It was a very different Pulisic to what we've seen before Graham Potter. And this is not just a one-time performance. That was a good performance against Wolves, if I'm not wrong, as well, in one of the other previous games as well. So I would have thought Pulisic would have started. And I think even in the podcast before that game, I did mention that I want Pulisic to start and maybe get a goal as well. And he was really close as well with that knuckleball shot at the goalkeeper, when I think Raya as well, he was surprised by that shot. But it's one of those where Graham Potter understands that he needs to rotate the squad around, and that's why I think Kai Havertz started as well, along with Broja, who got his first start as well. So we'll get into that. But what he did get wrong in terms of the lineups and in the midfield, I'll say, and I think a lot of people pointed this out as well, is Conor Gallagher in a pivot was not the ideal situation. Jorginho, the lack of pace, and he was never going to be able to take the ball up the pitch and then recover in defensive situations as well. And as we mentioned, the first half, Brighton were really honest. They were trying to get as much as they can, get a goal, and just sit back and defend for the rest of the 60, 70 minutes that was remaining. So, you know, he wasn't able to keep the ball. We lost the possession so many times, and Brentford pressing was one of the major reasons why Conor Gallagher was actually struggling, because, you know, he wasn't able to handle the ball well. And I think, honestly, when the lineups came out, I thought maybe we would have had Loftus-Cheek as a midfielder. Gallagher would go up and Mount would be up as well, because we weren't playing with a left winger, and Mount was essentially on the left hand side. I would have thought Gallagher and Mount would have gone up in behind Broja and Havertz, Loftus-Cheek in a pivot, but I guess Loftus-Cheek had a bit of a right wing back role covering up Azpilicueta. As we've mentioned many a times now, Azpilicueta's pace is a concern, which is why I think Potter needed a Loftus-Cheek to be there to help him out and clear those lines when required. Again, it's not Gallagher's natural position, so we can't really say that it's his own fault. And I think Potter did realize that, and one of the major reasons why he was subbed off was the illness, firstly, and Potter saying that it's nothing serious and he should be ready for the next game, and it was just a bit of a precaution that he was feeling a bit ill. But as well as that, Potter knew that this wasn't going to last long, because Brighton were coming in, and with the defense situation in that first half with Koulibaly, I thought he didn't come into the game prepared, because at the start Ivan Toney was causing some issues running in behind Koulibaly. The commentators pointed out a few times as well. A few of the players pointed it out as well, and a few changes were made. I think he grew into the game. Koulibaly understood what was needed, stayed back a little bit more than I guess what he was doing in the first half, and he managed to keep Brentford out, because honestly, and I will say this again, and I think I'm really enjoying saying this quite a lot, but Kepa Arrizabalaga, once again, just, what a performance from him. He's not leaving anything on the training pitch. I think he's taking everything in from the coaches and he's bringing it onto the game. And we've been seeing that so many times. When Koulibaly struggled, the chances that Brentford were getting, Arrizabalaga made sure they weren't going to be converted into goals. And he keeps Chelsea in the game, and just watching him put in so much effort, it was a bit disappointing that the rest of the team couldn't do enough to get that win. But even though it wasn't a win, there was a lot of positives to take from this. And yes, the run does stop, but at the end of the day, it's a 38 game long run rather than just a 5 or 6 game run. So overall, in defense in the first half and even in the second half, we were really good. Shaky at the start with a few chances. They were getting crosses in, and as I mentioned, to Ivan Toney getting those chances. And what's concerning to me is this defense was without Reece James, and we're going to be without Reece James for the next 8 weeks. And even after the World Cup, it could take him a few games to get settled in, come back, as Chilwell has taken. And Thiago Silva having that hamstring injury and being out this game, should be available for that Man United game. But again, you can't expect him to start every single game. So we need to really make sure our defense is set in stone. Yes, we did get away with a clean sheet, but against a good team like one of those top 4, top 2 teams, Arsenal and Man City, we could have conceded a few goals. And, we've seen with Chelsea, once we do concede goals, our heads go down and we really do struggle. So Chelsea really need to make sure they've got this defense locked in. And with Kante being out as well, there's some midfield issues with Gallagher having to play in that pivot and support Jorginho when his role is much higher up the pitch and to create chances and play a bit of a Mount role, I guess, when Mount plays in defense, not in defense, but in midfield. But yeah, it was an interesting one to watch as well. But the two up front with Mount and Broja, with no left wing. Mount was a bit on the left hand side. I think overall played really well. Nothing to take away from their performance, and I'm going to say that for a lot of the players on the pitch on that day, it was a really good performance overall. Just just wasn't enough to get us the win. That one goal would have been enough, but yeah, it is what it is. And it's Broja was showing a lot of threat to the opposition. The chances that he was creating, that big chance, obviously if he passed it he could have done it, but that's just him, not having that experience of and awareness of other players on the pitch. But you can't really blame him if he, in the first case, if he would have gotten that turn correctly, he would have taken that shot. But if that pass to Mount would have actually connected, would have been a great goal, and it would have been a great link up for Broja as well. But he's been showing some great performances, not just this game, but even the last few games. He's really shown what he can do, and he's been much better than Kai Havertz. And I think when we talk about Kai Havertz in this game, it's going to be a long not a debate, because it's going to be a one-sided conversation of just not understanding why Kai Havertz started that game. He was really he was really poor and disappointing. Honestly, he just struggled to play, and it was one of those games where he could have come on, and when he got the chance to start, he should have taken it head on and been like, right, today I'm going to have to score a goal, today I'm going to have to create some chances, today I am going to cement my place into the scene. Because realistically, with Pulisic performing, Broja performing, Aubameyang performing, Sterling performing, and Mount, there's not a lot of options for Havertz to come into and break into that team and become a regular starter. And there was a pivot behind him, as I mentioned. Mount was in behind him at times as well. Mount was on the left-hand side. I think Graham Potter had a few different things going on just to try and get Kai Havertz to grow into that game, to find something Kai Havertz can do. And he had so much space at times to create those chances, maybe look for a good pass, maybe do a 1-2, try and get in behind defenders, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing from Kai Havertz. And this conversation is going to be, it's not a conversation that's just going to be happening at the in the fans ends of things. It's not just a Twitter conversation. And I feel like with a few games to come that are, and by the time the World Cup kicks off, this is a conversation the Chelsea board, the Chelsea management will be having, because they'll be like, look, Kai Havertz, we expect him to perform under a new manager. We've seen Pulisic turn it around. We've seen Broja turn it around. Aubameyang performing as well. Obviously, didn't have a lot of time under Thomas Tuchel, but when they see all of those players performing, they'll go, well, what's wrong with Kai Havertz? This is a very similar situation to what Timo Werner was going through, something that Ziyech has been having, because we haven't seen much of Ziyech under Potter, and that's basically because his performance under Tuchel was abysmal, and his attitude, I think, was really abysmal. And what Pulisic has turned it around. Yes, he hasn't gotten the goals, he hasn't gotten the assists, and he's only gotten one goal in the last few games. But the attitude and the effort that he's putting off the ball is just incredible to see, which is why a lot of people are appreciating him and taking back what they said about Pulisic being sold and stuff. So, and I myself at times maybe have said, where we've spent so much money on a player like Pulisic, and him not living up to those expectations hasn't been nice to see. So it is quite a nice change to see Pulisic play the way he is, and it's just I just really hope that he is consistent, no injuries coming in, and touch wood, he just plays really well up until the World Cup, and then it'll be interesting to see what happens after the World Cup once he comes back from the USA squad. But once again, going back to Havertz, he had the chance to create those chances, get in between the lines, but nothing from there as well. So and I think in terms of Potter, yes, the mistake of starting him, and at the same time giving Potter the benefit of the doubt. He didn't expect Kai Havertz to play the way that he did, but what Graham Potter should have done was just taken Kai Havertz off way earlier than what he did. Like, he shouldn't have been there in the 81st minute on the pitch. For me, it just didn't make any sense to me, because when you've got Aubameyang coming on in the 81st minute replacing Kai Havertz, and whereas Broja and both Mount taken off in the 62nd minute, it's not a good look, because those two players were performing, and while on the other hand Kai Havertz was struggling, and I guess we needed a striker who could cause threat, because when you've got Broja off the pitch, Kai Havertz was there. And instead of Havertz and Mount, we had Pulisic and Raheem Sterling come in, so we didn't have any striker who could cause any threats, any issues. And 81 minutes for Kai Havertz is just not the right. It doesn't send the right message to a lot of the players. And he had one shot, if that, if you want to even count it as a shot, like 45 touches if you want to talk about stats and stuff. So a lot of the times that he was dispossessed and unable to even complete passes. So not the best of his nights. And where Potter went wrong was he should have substituted Kai Havertz earlier. Aubameyang should have come on. Broya maybe should have stayed on the pitch. Maybe we could have just swapped out Kai Havertz and Raheem Sterling, and Mount and Broya and Sterling could have done something. So it's one of those games where Potter must have learned a lot in terms of Gallagher, where he played in that pivot, and Kai Havertz, what his future is like at Chelsea FC. Because realistically, yes, we did draw a game. Yes, we've come off so many games in the last 2 weeks. What we've played 4 or 5 games in the last 2 weeks, including, or 6 games, including this one now. And we've got so many games coming up with that Liverpool and Fulham game as well, which is postponed and has to be played before Christmas, which essentially means that not Christmas, but by the end of the year, which essentially means that before the World Cup. So it's a jam-packed schedule, but at the same time, Potter's going to really have to think about who he plays. Yes, rotation is key, but you can't rotate and bring in players who are performing like Kai Havertz did on the night. And I really do hope he turns around, because he's one talent that I've really looked forward to, along with Pulisic. Those two guys were really two of my favorite signings at Chelsea in recent times, and two signings that I'd really wanted to see hit off and play really well at Chelsea, but it just hasn't happened. And Pulisic, nice to see him come back, but Kai Havertz really needs to get his stuff sorted out. But talking about the second half, once again, that 62nd minute substitution with Man and Broya coming off made no sense. And Aubameyang, he was a threat as well. I know I'm saying this for Broya as well, but both of those guys have been a threat to the opposition and the defense. And he was the perfect guy to just stand in there and try and hit off a header, or try and get in when a cross comes in, to try and attack it as much as he can. But bringing him on in the 81st minute isn't going to do a lot of difference, because a player needs 5 or 10 minutes just to settle into the game. You can't expect him to come on and score a goal right away. So it is one of those which Potter will look at. But one of the performance which I was really happy with Carney coming in, and the intent he showed, the chances he created, the issues he caused to Brentford with the few shots that he took. And obviously, yes, he could have done better in some situations, and he could have performed a little better. But again, he's still young. He hasn't gotten a lot of minutes. He's only played as a sub in the games that he's played in. So once he really gets his confidence up, I think he'll understand what needs to be done and to be doing it. And in conclusion, honestly, it's one of those games where we knew it was not going to be an eventful game. It wasn't going to be a very brightful game of 4 or 5 goals, but it was just going to be one of those where we scrape away week 3. But even a draw isn't bad. It's going to be it's a learning lesson for Potter, and it's going to be a build up to Man United coming up. So and I think the only difference, I guess the biggest one would be that, a team like Chelsea aren't able to take the chances and create enough, I guess, which is why we're still like a mid-table team struggling to get into that top 4, compared to Arsenal, Man City, who've been incredible in terms of taking those chances and creating those chances for themselves in games like these. Because in the end of the day, yes, it's a marathon, but losing out on games like these do affect us at the end of the season. And it's gonna all come down to just playing against Man United, winning against them, making sure that gap is bigger than 3 points, bigger than 1 point actually, what it is right now. And if they do win, then it's going to be a bit of there will be a fair few questions asked from Graham Potter, because that'll be a big test for Chelsea, with a few squad members from Man United who are out as well. So in terms of Kai Havertz, just concluding on what needs to be done with him, and I think Bowley being fierce and not caring, I guess, about not giving more or less on what I'm trying to say is Todd Bowley is ruthless, and he'll look at this Kai performance, and if this continues on, he won't think twice replacing him because we've already been hearing rumors about Nkunku, Liao, and the other transfers, and how we're even ready to spend big in January, whereas we've already done so much in the summer window, and we've already planning for next summer window with Rice and everyone else in defense in midfield, and we need 3 midfielders coming in. But he really is someone who really needs to up his game, take the opportunities that he gets, and in games like these, especially, just take those chances, just become consistent. We're not as a fan, you don't expect, or yes, there are a few players you expect goals from each week, but someone like Kai, we're not expecting him right now to score every single week, but we're just expecting him to create those chances, to show that intent, to show the intensity, to attack, to threat the goalkeeper, to cause threat to the defense. And once you start doing that, automatically goals and assists will come, and you'll build up your confidence from there. But he just really needs to build it out and get things sorted out before Bowley decides, well, time's up, and when an offer comes in, Bowley wouldn't think twice to accept that one. But moving on to the Man United game, the big one, I think it'll be a very, very interesting game. But the biggest news of them all right now, Ronaldo out of the squad for Man United. And the reason for that, for those who might not know, is him walking out before the match ended in the last Man United game. And I think he wasn't playing as well in that game. So a bit disappointing to see someone like Ronaldo do something like that, an ambassador of the game, when someone watches a game like Man United games, because realistically, the Premier League is an international league where people from around the world watch it. But when players do things like this, it does affect the image of the club. It does affect the manager. It does affect the team morale. So it's not something that's taken lightly. And I think one of the biggest reasons why Thomas Tuchel didn't want Ronaldo at Chelsea was the ego issue, which comes from someone who's achieved everything there is to achieve in football and more. I mean, Ronaldo, Messi, two of the greatest footballers of all time, and I can sit here for hours and hours and talk about their accolades and their achievements, but realistically, it is time for them to hang up their boots. And that's why I think Messi made it very clear this is his last World Cup. Ronaldo knows this is his last World Cup. And in a few years, we will see them retire and put their boots up, not because they're not going to be performing at that level, but because youngsters need a chance. They won't be getting so much game time. They'll want to come out of the game and say, right, that's it. We've set records, we've broken records, we've challenged each other for the last 10, 15 years. El Clasico games, broken any viewership records there are to break, bar a World Cup Portugal versus Argentina final. It'll be very surprising to me if Ronaldo does end up at one of the big clubs in Europe anymore, because I think this is it for him, and this will be the end of the curtain for him. And this is why I didn't want him at Chelsea as well. I think he's an incredible player, but just not something Chelsea need right now. If we're gonna think about the future in the next 5 years, then Ronaldo isn't someone you want running down the wing 5 years from now. And taking such a huge chunk of the wage bill for himself, and rightly so. I'm not going to talk a lot about his wages, because what he's done at Real Madrid, what he's done at Man United in his first spell, what he's done at any other club for Portugal, even for Portugal, it's unimaginable for any player, or it's a dream for any footballer to do things like those. So respect to him for getting to where he is, but I think it's time to put the curtains on the career and call it day, or step aside and let the youngsters take over, because that's how it works. A player can never be bigger than the game, or bigger than a team or a squad. So yeah, you either listen to the manager or you just step aside. It's someone who's been in football for so long should understand that. But moving to Chelsea, I think the lineups for United, for me, I think Kepa has to start. There is no other choice. Mendy, I do feel sorry for him. Like we've seen a few videos of him on the bench and just how he's been covering up his face and all. But realistically, Kepa's come in, he got a few chances and he's taken him. And 450 minutes or more actually with added time since the last time Kepa conceded in all competitions. And Mendy has struggled in the start of the season. Maybe under Potter it might have been a different situation, but Kepa has done nothing wrong for me to drop him. And in a goalkeeper position, there isn't a lot of rotation needed, so Kepa should 100% start. And I think for Mendy, if he wants a chance to come in, and that chance will probably be that Man City game in the Carabao Cup, and so he needs to be prepared for that. He needs to come in and give the best performance, because realistically, Man City aren't going to back down with putting up a strong squad, and neither are Chelsea, because this is a competition that everyone wants to win, and beating Man City would mean that you go very far in the tournament, because they are the team to beat in competitions like those, and we have struggled in the past to do that. So it'll be a good game for us to beat as well, and a good game to give a few of the other players a chance as well. But moving back to Man United, I keep moving out of the Man United game. As far as the other starters go, for me, Pulisic has to start. He's proven his worth. He needs to start alongside Mount, and then in front, Aubameyang has to start as well for me. The reason I don't want Broja up there is because the Man United defense has struggled, yes, but at the same time, everyone on that Man United pitch has got more experience than Broja, and Aubameyang knows what he's doing against Man United. Broja more than happy to come on after halftime, after 65 minutes, and replace Aubameyang when there's a goal there already. But realistically, I want Aubameyang up in there, and I think that's one of the main reasons why Aubameyang and Sterling both were rested against Brentford, to give them some time to rest before that Man United and that big game. So for me, both of those guys start, and it's clear as daylight Kai Havertz has to sit on the bench for this game. Not even sure if he should come on as a sub, and we should just use other subs, but that would be one of those. But we need to just pressure them out. We need to really make sure we take our chances. We need to make sure we start off really well. Don't let them grow into the game. It's a home game. We're going to have the fans backing the whole 90 minutes, and just make the Bridge a hell of a place for them to even try and take a shot or try and pass it around. But just really make them struggle. As long as you make them struggle, they will cave in, and eventually we'll get our chances to take them as well. In terms of a score, I don't want to say a draw, and the reason I say that is because they've been inconsistent and they have struggled. Even though, yes, they've beaten Man City, they've beaten Arsenal, they've beaten Man City as well, if I'm not wrong. I can't remember if they've beaten Man City or not, but they have had a good record against the Big Six. So it's not a game that we should take lightly. It's not a game where we can afford to be lenient and allow Man United to grow into the game. I was saying they beat Man City, but they've lost 6-3. I've just realized. But yeah, it's one of those games where we really need to make sure we're on top of things. They've just come off a win against Tottenham Hotspur. That's the one that I was looking for. But we just pressure them out and don't get a draw. Just get a 1-0 win, 2-0 win. I can't afford to see another draw and then wait another few months for another game, because we haven't won since 2017. It's been a long time. We've replaced multiple managers, and if we still can't beat Man United, and a team like Man United right now who have so much going on, that it should be the perfect time to beat them, and it is the perfect time to beat them. So for me, I think 2-1. They will score. They've got a good attacking side in Anthony. But 2-1, maybe 2-0, maybe 1-0. What could happen? But I think 2-0, 2-1 should be the score on the night, and it'll be a great game to watch as well. Both teams will go at it. But in terms of the other topics, the January signings, a lot of things going on around Chelsea, with Graham Potter commenting on the Zakaria situation. I think there was something on there that there has no decision been made yet, because there was rumors about him going on a loan. Well, let's see what's going to happen with that, because right now it just doesn't make any sense, because Zakaria was brought in as a replacement for Kante, and Kante's been out for the last few weeks. He's going to be out for the next few weeks as well. But there's no certainty around Zakaria coming in and replacing him and being that number 6 position that we need. But it is a bit, I guess, annoying and a bit weird to me that this situation's come to this, because yes, he's Tuchel signing, but at the same time, I highly doubt that Potter saying that he doesn't trust him enough to get some minutes is the real reason. There has to be something else in there. But in the other news, Reece James, Kante is still injured. Reece James going to be out for the World Cup as well, but he could make that 64-man or 54-man squad that not Graham Potter, but Gareth Southgate is planning to make an announcement on in a few weeks. And Kante obviously misses out on the World Cup and that surgery that has been done. So really going to miss them right now, because realistically, the games that are coming in, we need players like Reece James and Kante to put in that shift, and someone who can cover the whole pitch and someone who can create those chances for Chelsea. But in terms of that Nkunku and Leao situation, as mentioned, if Kai Havertz doesn't perform well, I think Bowley knows what he's doing, and he's got two great options lined up, and he won't hesitate twice to cause some stir at Chelsea in terms of those front positions. But those are things to talk about in more closer to the window, but a lot to talk about as well. And yeah, in terms of the Man United game, going to be a big one. A lot of people will be looking forward to Chelsea, I guess, struggling in that game because they want to say something about Potter. But I think Chelsea fans know that in Potter we do trust him, and yeah, I think he can realistically do the job and make Ten Hag really struggle at the bridge, and Man United really struggle on the night. 2-1 is my score prediction. But let us know what you guys think of that game and the game against Brentford. Should we have taken that 3 points? And let us know what you guys think. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media pages. We'll be back after the Man United game reviewing that with a few other with a guest as well. We're going to be back to regular podcasts if you didn't enjoy 32 minutes of just me speaking in a hole. I haven't taken a break as well. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Follow us on all of our social media pages, like the video, and comment below what you guys thought, and we'll see you next time. Then stay safe.